Good afternoon, Dr. Saab. It's a wonderful arrangement, and you can say best wishes in advance for a grand success of this webinar. It's a wonderful
program is started at 5 o'clock.
Best wishes from the entire MIT University, on behalf of the Dr. Ashok K. Chauhan.
Thank you. Thank you. And people are joining, that's the 5 o'clock jet time. Still 5 to 6 minutes.
आलोक जी नमस्कार कैसे हो unmute yourself. You're muted. Yeah, how are you?
Is all is well. Yes, I see all of you.
Looking good. Last I saw you in the hospital.
So
all well?
To this, all is well.
Good.
Yes, good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
Good morning, madam.
Good morning.
President, sir.
Dr. Mishra, Dr. Bhargav has joined? No.
Yeah. We actually trial as 4:15 have a trial. So I've joined and we share the slide. But he say if any difficulty, then for just for backup, he provided a slide and everything was right. So sir is already joined. I think that's
What day?
But sir will join again. That I think 5 o'clock. We'll join again 5 o'clock. The system is on. I think his name is. And President, sir, that's fine.
President, sir, have not joined yet, sir.
He may not join also.
Okay. President sir will be not here. Vice President sir.
Gautam sir, namaskar. How are you, sir? Mute पे है sir.
मिश्रा जी कर देते हैं म्यूट, वही कंट्रोल तो उन्हीं के हाथ में।
नहीं सर, कंट्रोल आईटी टीम में लगे वो।
चलिए, नहीं बहुत अच्छा, जरूरी भी है, इसमें कन्वीन करने में दिक्कत होती है सभी को। पहले तो कोरोना में जो लोग आज बच के उपस्थित हो रहे हैं सबको बहुत बहुत बधाई, क्योंकि बहुत खराब समय था, निकल रहा है, धीरे धीरे निकलेगा। और हम सब
Good morning, Professor Thiruvasagam sir.
Good morning, madam. Good morning to every one of you. Good evening. Good evening.
Good evening. Yes.
Good evening. Good evening. How are you, professors?
Good evening, sir.
Gautam, how are you?
Very fine. Very fine. We are happy to see you on.
But today, Professor Tej Prakash may not join, so I will request Professor Thiruvasagam to say a few words.
Right. Very right.
Certainly, madam. Thank you.
He is the future of.
No. I am going to be one among you. Thank you, sir.
Just opening remark.
OPS नेगी।
साहब नमस्कार।
नमस्कार गौतम साहब।
कम से कम जब तक भार्गव साहब नहीं आ रहे तो यही राम राम हो जाए।
नमस्कार, तब तक हो जाएगा।
योगा, ये कोरोना में जो कुछ बचा कुछ है, ये भगवान सबकी कृपा बनाए रखे। हम ईश्वर से यही प्रार्थना करते हैं, सब स्वस्थ रहे, मस्त रहे।
जी सर।
स्वस्थ रहे, मस्त रहे
सब जी। स्वस्थ भी रहे सब।
स्वस्थ जरूरी है, इसी की तो है। बिना युद्ध के पूरा विश्व शांत हो गया, कोरोना ने सबको शांत कर दिया। घर में बैठने के लिए मजबूर हो गए लोग, नहीं तो किसी को आपातकाली में कोई बैठने की टाइम ही नहीं था।
हाँ, कोई परिवार को टाइम देने को तैयार ही नहीं था, बिल्कुल नहीं।
तो कोरोना ने मदद कर दी आपकी। चलिए, ये लंबा समय परिवार के साथ रहे होंगे आप, डर के साथ रहते सकते तो मैं डर भी लगा।
नमस्कार सर। नमस्कार। I am Dr. Pankaj Mitra. Professor Thiruvasagam, he is the Vice President of AIU and President designate. So in July he will be the President. AIU President means the senior most Vice Chancellor of the country.
Yes, sir. Good evening, sir.
Good evening.
Professor Tej Pratap, who is currently the President, he is not able to join today for some reason.
Okay.
Dr. Mishra, I think it is the
Yeah,
time.
the time we can start.
Professor Bhargav, can we start? Sure. Thank you.
Sure, anytime.
Sir, we can start.
I think yes.
Yeah, we'll start now.
Good evening to ladies and gentlemen. I, Dr. Alok Mishra, Joint Secretary AIU, welcome you all on behalf of AIU. It's my pleasure to welcome Dr. Balram Bhargava sir, Director General Icmr and Secretary to Government of India, Health Research, Ministry of Health and Family Welfare. Sir, namaskar. As the esteemed expert for today's session of Meet the Doctor series by Association of Indian Universities, I extend a warm welcome to Honorable President of AIU, Dr. Tej Pratap Singh, sir, who is the Senior Vice Chancellor of the country. Sir, due to some reason, sir will join later on. Vice President of AIU, Dr. Thiruvasagam sir, the second Senior Vice Chancellor of the country, and respected Dr. Pankaj Mittal Madam, Secretary General of AIU, all Honorable Vice Chancellors, officials from various ministries who have joined us. Today's topic, India's fight against COVID-19, role of Icmr. I think we are all aware about it, the role of Icmr, but today, sir, with us. It's scheduled for lecture followed by question and answer session. This program is live on Facebook and YouTube also. Too many people already joined. I would request to all participants to switch off the mic. Kindly raise your hands if you have any question and unmute yourself one at a time. I now invite Honorable Secretary General of AIU, Dr. Pankaj Mittal, Madam, for official welcome, followed by the Vice President's opening remark. Madam.
Okay. Thank you, Alokji. Thanks for introducing. A very good evening to all of you. Hope you and your loved ones are safe and in good health. I, on my behalf and on behalf of Association of Indian Universities, welcome you all, and especially DG Icmr Professor Balram Bhargava, who has agreed to be with us today evening. We know that the world is passing through the biggest crisis of the century, the COVID pandemic. Globally, efforts are being made to contain the virus, to find its cure in terms of medicines, and prevention in terms of vaccines and so on. Icmr is doing a pioneer work in all these areas, and hence there are a lot of questions in everybody's minds, like what was the origin of the coronavirus? Is it man-made or natural? Why it is spreading so fast? What the Icmr is doing to prevent such incidents in future? What can be done about hoarding of the vaccines by rich countries, which they are hoarding? And what can we do towards universal and equitable distribution of vaccines and medicines? New vaccines which are in offering, especially from the Indian sector. Is Ayurveda approved by Icmr for prevention, and so on? I mean, there are so many questions which are in the minds of the Vice Chancellors and the other academicians who have joined us today. To understand all this and to answer the questions relating to COVID and many more such questions, AIU started Meet the Doctor series around 5 weeks back, and under which we have met Dr. Naresh Trehan so far, Dr. J.C. Suri from Safdarjung Hospital, Dr. Randeep Guleria, and last time we had invited Dr. Soumya Swaminathan, but there was a technical glitch and we'll be repeating that program very shortly. And so far these sessions have been huge success. So far we have been talking about the symptoms, treatment, management of COVID and how to prevent it. But this week we have an expert from Icmr to answer your questions on India's fight against COVID-19 and the role of Icmr in fighting in that fight. But before I invite him, please allow me to share with you a brief background of Dr. Bhargava. Professor Balram Bhargava is a professor of cardiology at All India Institute of Medical Sciences, New Delhi, and also serves as the executive director for Stanford India Biodesign Center, School of International Biodesign. He has taken over as Director General of Icmr, come Secretary Department of Health Research, Ministry of Health and Family Welfare, Government of India, since 16th April 2018. Professor Bhargava is an outstanding cardiologist, one of the foremost leaders in biomedical innovation, public health, medical education, and medical research. He has, during his tenure as faculty at AIIMS for over 25 years, treated more than 2 lakh patients and trained over 200 cardiologists. Professor Bhargava has excellent leadership qualities and has established the School of International Biodesign at AIIMS, a unique interdisciplinary fellowship program to foster innovation, design in low-cost implants and devices with a mandate to promote global, affordable, need-driven healthcare innovation. In short, Gandhi. Gandhi is global, affordable, need-driven healthcare innovation. 5 of the low-cost devices are in the Indian market, and 1 device has been approved by the US FDA so far. He has also developed the indigenous platinum iridium coil coronary stent and has also set up the GMIP Center for Excellence in Stem Cell Studies. He has been awarded the S.N. Bose Centenary Award by the Indian National Congress and National Science Congress and Indian Academy of Sciences Platinum Jubilee Award. He has been awarded the Padma Shri and the UNESCO Equatorial Guinea International Prize for Research in Life Sciences at Paris. He is also a recipient of Lee Jong-wook Memorial Prize for Public Health by WHO Geneva. He has recently received President's Medal Award from Royal College of Physicians and Surgeons of Glasgow. And that award was for his research in frugal innovations in February 2020. So welcome once again, Professor Bhargav, and welcome all the Vice Chancellors and academics to this program of AIU. And once again, I would like to thank Dr. Bhargav from the core of my heart for agreeing to come to this program and to interact with the Vice Chancellors. And thanks to all the Vice Chancellors for joining us today. Thank you very much. Over to Dr. Thiruvisagam to say a few words, and then we'll listen to Professor Bhargav. Thank you, sir. Professor Thiruvisagam.
Honorable colleagues, Vice Chancellors, and beloved and respected Madam Dr. Pankaj Mittal, Secretary General of AIU, most respected special guest and speaker of today, Dr. Balram Bhargava. I am very much delighted to be amongst you, especially in extending special welcome to the chief guest of this day, Dr. Balram Bhargava. I would like to put a small question with our chief guest. Doctor, we are very fortunate to have you as a special guest today. And from the top to bottom, I mean, from the Vice Chancellor to a common man in the street, we have few doubts and major clarifications we need from you. We sincerely oblige the requirement of disaster management. We keep distance from people, we clean our hands, and we always go with nowadays 2 masks. But what we want, experts are saying only the vaccine is the solution. If you go for 2 vaccines, there will not be more damage for your life in future. Now, all of us are looking you and your organization, rather to say the government of India. Here, we get lot of confusing news from politicians and from media, saying that it is not going to happen in the near future. It will take years to get vaccinated by all the people, 2 doses. In the meantime, what apprehension we have, there are people telling that they have discovered, invented some vaccine, as said by Dr. Pankaj Mittal, Ayurvedic, someone is telling it is a solution. Today, I had a latest information from a video. The Israel, there is one doctor and scientist. He has come out and saying that only within 5 days, any kind of COVID can be sent out. This kind of confusion is going on. When the Icmr is going to give permission for such inventions, and when we people of the entire India is going to get vaccinated within the short span of time, because that is the only major solution to take care of our life. With these words of my observation, I invite Dr. Balram Bhargava, please address.
Thank you. Thank you so much for the kind words. I hope I'm audible.
Yes.
Yeah. Yes, sir.
Thank you so much for the very kind words. Honorable Professor Thiruvisagam, Honorable Dr. Pankaj Mittal, Dr. Alok Mishra, and Honorable Vice Chancellors of India, the dignitaries as well as luminaries that are present in the video conferencing audience. I will talk in about 30 minutes, and I will talk about the contributions of Icmr, because we were the first institute to get into the act from January of last year, that is 30th January when we diagnosed the first case. And subsequently, there has been no stopping. We have been working Saturday, Sunday, right up to 12 at midnight during the lockdowns. In the first lockdown, till 2 a.m. in the mornings for experiments in Pune, as well as the distribution of the kits, etc., right up to midnight with the Operation Lifeline Udan of the Indian Air Force for supplying kits to various laboratories in the country. Having said that, the amount of work that has been done by this 110-year-old organization is a lot, but it has been a whole of government approach And the same amount of work has been done by various other institutions and organizations in the government, whether it be for the oxygen, whether it be for the hospital beds, whether it be for medications, as well as for vaccine development. So I will be talking the main pillars that ICMR has taken care of is testing, which that starts the whole disease process. Once you test, then only you can track, trace, and then treat accordingly. And the second pillar is the vaccine, the first indigenous vaccine that has been developed by ICMR by its efforts, working overnight and working in the months of the first lockdown to develop this vaccine. And I will tell you some details about them in more scientific terms as well, and then be happy to answer all your questions. With your kind permission, I would share my screen and start the slides. I hope you are seeing the slides.
Yes, sir. Yes,
Okay.
yes.
Right. So now, why this century has witnessed more exotic infections and more frequent viral infections like SARS, MERS, Ebola, yellow fever, Zika, Nipah twice in Kerala in 2018 and 19. And then we have seen and witnessed and are witnessing this COVID-19, which is a huge, big pandemic that has taken the world by surprise. And the possible reasons that are being thought about in the scientific community are basically because of the change in environment, change in ecology. And today is World Environment Day, so it is very timely and important that we need to manage our environment, our ecology very carefully, respect our environment, right from the individual level to the family level, to the institution level, to the organization level, to the ministry level, and as well right up to the national level and internationally. We have to respect our environment. Rapid urbanization, extreme connectivity, people have been traveling a lot, and the airline industry, the railways industry, the automobiles. So there has been tremendous amount of connectivity that we have seen in this millennium, and the neglected public health and inadequate spending on public health, which has been which has been around 1% of our gross domestic product, although it has been increased in this budget little bit, but we are still short of many developed nations which have up to 18-19% of their GDP, whilst countries like United States has 19% of a $20 trillion economy, which is more than our economy being spent on healthcare, whilst countries in Europe and UK have about 9 to 10% of their GDP. So our spending has been low as far as healthcare is concerned. The public healthcare institutions are suffering a lot of inertia. They have to be repaired. They have to be taken, and this opportunity is there that we need to take care of our public healthcare institutions, as well as the doctors who are manning those institutions. They need to be taken care of, and we are pining to become specialists and super specialists and super specialists. But what a country like India needs is a good MBBS doctor who is taken care of and can go to the periphery of the country to take care of it, to take care of. And what happened in the early 80s in the United Kingdom was that they started dwindling the general practitioners, and then they realized that the general practitioners in the country are most important, and they paid an honorary, they took care of them, and they were paid more than the specialist or cardiac surgeons or super specialists. And therefore, they have been able to revive their GP system again in the United Kingdom. We need to, again, in our country, look at that more carefully and revive our good MBBS doctors who should be well trained and be able to do general practice and general treatment well. So now in India, the response has been being the largest democracy and respect to its people's voices It has recalibrated its intervention. It has been serious right from the beginning. There has been a whole of government approach. And during the first wave, predominantly, it was a calibrated, proactive, preemptive, and a graded response, which was science-driven with best practices and evidence-based. And we have a strong leadership with excellent communication, which has taken all the states along. We have resisted the concept of herd immunity, which many nations like the United Kingdom during the first wave and Sweden tried to, and some parts of the United States tried to talk about herd immunity and faced large amount of mortality during that first wave. Now, I will mainly talk about the testing, which has been the main pillar of ICMR. And if you look at the first wave as well as the second wave, this pillar has remained strong and has served the country in every which way right from the beginning. And we have been gradually ramping up, and are still ramping up the testing capabilities of the country. We had upscaled it with a vision of having a good RT-PCR laboratory in every district, and 664 out of 741 districts have a RT-PCR laboratory. We created 14 mentor institutes in different parts of the country to mentor laboratories in their region around them. And also we set up labs in terrains which are Ladakh, Northeast, Andaman Nicobar, Lakshadweep, and these were set up with full training and full quality control and quality listing. We did an important Gazette notification on the 16th of June last year, wherein we made it mandatory for every medical college to have a BSL-2 laboratory for viral testing. Otherwise, that medical college will be derecognized by the MCI. This was a masterstroke, which we have tried to repeat this year with the oxygen generation plant. So this was done very proactively in June of last year, and the medical and with the recommendation of the ICMR, the Medical Council of India did this with the Ministry of Health and passed this order wherein every medical, so we were able to have 600 odd medical colleges, and nearly 95%, 97% have set up the laboratories, which are BSL-2 facilities for viral testing, which will serve the future for tuberculosis testing as well as other viral testing. So that is a huge infrastructure that has been created in the country, which will be an asset for the country. The similar notification was passed a few months back for the oxygen generation plants for all medical colleges, and that is also happening gradually. Now, the molecular tests were standard PCR tests. We had the high throughput machines, we had the TrueNat, and I'll talk about that because this is the most important indigenous CBNat Abbott machines, and then the newer methodologies, which is the CRISPR test developed by CSIR, and the RT-LAMP and the dry swab methods, which are newer and yet to be in the field testing in a big way. So we were able to develop, validate, and recalibrate or repurpose the TrueNat test, which is a molecular test, which was used for tuberculosis testing, and by the efforts of ICMR got WHO pre-qualification for tuberculosis testing. This TrueNat is a portable machine, weighs about 3 kilos, and can be used in smaller villages and can also be battery powered. So we used it for Nipah testing in 2018, 2019. We also used it for leptospirosis testing for the first time in the world. And this was used for COVID also in the first time in the world in the month of April in India. And we have 2,530 TrueLab workstations in India operational because across 530 districts. So these were already present in many districts, and this was repurposed for COVID-19 testing. And a similar molecular test was developed in the United Kingdom and was made, was used in October of last year, whilst we started using it in April in a huge big way. And the Lancet has talked about this, Indian Lancet Microbes has talked about it, that this was repurposed, the WHO pre-qualified lab in a suitcase, which was very useful in smaller districts and villages. And this was a great innovation as far as India was concerned, and the whole world respected that. We have set up a state-of-the-art high throughput machines in various, and we have also set up RT-PCR machines as assembly lines 7 of them in one laboratory where we had very good trained staff, and we were able to test more than 2,000 to 4,000 tests in those laboratories per day. We also were able, during the third wave, which happened in Delhi, the first in June and the second in September and third in December, we also utilized the mobile testing laboratories in 10 areas of Delhi. And these mobile test laboratories are now being used in Maharashtra, in Kerala, and have also been used in Uttarakhand and various other states for molecular testing for COVID-19. Now, if we look at January, February, March last year, it was a seller's market, and we had to import the diagnostic kits from different parts of the world. But over the year, we have 24 validation centers in the country of Icmr, and we have validated more than 1,336 diagnostics, whether it be viral testing equipment or RNA extraction machines. And we see that one RT-PCR test used to cost 1,700 rupees, and today it is 135 rupees. And we are exporting, we have been exporting these kits, viral transport medium, RNA extraction kits, and RT-PCR kits in several 494 lakhs, 949 lakhs, and 1,048 lakhs, because of the Indian entrepreneurs have risen to the occasion, and we have had Indian products available, and these products were competing, and the Western products also reduced their price, and therefore this was a win-win, and Icmr, along with the science ministries, has contributed this immensely, and we have been exporting these with a tremendous amount of monthly production of these RT-PCR capabilities and capacities. Now, during, I want to take you back to the March 24th, 2020, when we had the first lockdown. We had limited number of laboratories. The Icmr National Institute of Virology was the first laboratory to start testing, and there was a complete lockdown, and the Icmr was working with the mentor institutes, setting up laboratories, training, video conferencing, training of various laboratories. And we had partnership with the Ministry of Civil Aviation, Indian Air Force, Indian Railways, India Post, and we had a mission called Mission Lifeline Udan. And the diagnostic kits were flown at 2 a.m., 1 a.m. at night, from packed and taken by helicopters, PPE kits, etc., by the civil aviation at night and different parts of the day to the whole country. And that was a huge 24/7 mission, where our office used to work till 2 a.m. in the morning, Saturdays, Sundays, during the month of May, right up to the month of August. We were doing work to delivery of these testing commodities to various parts of the country. And that is a huge mission that was lauded by different parts of the world as well at that point in time. But we had the second wave where we had problems, and we received a lot of flack, and we will be talking about that as well. Now, the testing was calibrated. As I mentioned, we had a calibrated response right from the beginning. In February, we had the RT-PCR tests available only for travelers. Then in March, we had for contacts, healthcare workers, SARI. Then in April, as I mentioned, we had the TrueNat, which then we could expand our testing. We did pool testing. Then in May, in June, we had the antigen test. Now, this antigen test was also used for the first time in India and in June, and then it was validated, and the WHO allowed it in October, but we were using it in our country right from June of last year. And that was a test which was point of care test, and we could get the results within 15 minutes. It was good for a positive test, but not good for a negative test. So it was good. If it is positive, it was positive. So then in September of last year, we liberalized testing, that it was available on demand, and gradually it has been expanded very, very systematically. And it is a robust platform which has stood its test of time during the second wave, because it was done very strongly. Now, in February of 2020, I do not know if people remember, we had about 6,000 Shia pilgrims who were stranded in Qum, in Tehran, in Isfahan, in Iran, and they were visiting the holy sites there. So Icmr was asked to set up a laboratory there in Iran, and 6 of our scientists flew by Indian Air Force, and they were taken there, and they were able to set up the laboratories. But the Iran authorities did not allow us to set up a laboratory in the city because it meant whether it will be open for only these pilgrims or for other people. So it was set up in the basement of the Indian embassy in Iran, and we collected samples there, and all those who were negative were repatriated very fast, and then the positives were treated and repatriated. So this was a huge effort as part of the, again, Mission Uran, wherein we got our people from Wuhan, we got our people from Italy, and testing swabs came from Italy as well, and as well as samples came from China. So we tested those, but here we had to set up in Iran, we had to, and also from the ship that was stranded in Japan. So people have a very short memory and forget all the huge amount of work that was done during that time when everyone in the world was learning what we were doing. We had an inventory forecasting system, and we set up 24 Icmr depots for systematic distribution of testing commodities all across the country. And we set up a platform, digital platform for the same. And we had a CV analytics, which had each and every test that is reported by a laboratory is reported to the Icmr network. And we have about 35 crore tests available on our testing database, which is the largest database in the world in terms of the testing. And that, again, with the help of NIC, with the help of the government, with the help of the Ministry of Health, we have been able to make that testing portal so robust that it has stood the test of time, and we have been doing analytics from it off and on and advising the government accordingly. Capacity assessment, we had to do projections, tendering, get the things on the e-market so that it had to be done through the proper process of purchase by expression of interest, which was done very rapidly by when the pandemic was declared, and the empowered groups by the Prime Minister's empowered group helped us in doing that on a rapid scale. And all this is also scientifically done and has been published in the world literature. So we were able to test up the laboratories, which were the molecular testing laboratories, which are 2589, with more than 7,000 RT-PCR machines and more than 3,800 TrueNat and CBNat machines and 12 high throughput machines. Now here, I just want to bring one point. These high throughput machines were rationed in last year in March, April, that we will supply only 6 to India. We will have 16 for Asia. This was from the United States. Well, however, we had 3 or 4 already for tuberculosis. So we repurposed them and started using them. But again, their consumables are very expensive. Even today, they're about 1,300 rupees for one RT-PCR test, although it is slightly faster, but it is expensive. So we still have 12 high throughput machines in the country. And we sometimes send samples there when they are required. So now in terms of the testing in the second wave, we were facing a massive upsurge with the testing positivity in the country of now it is about 6.9, but a testing average is about 7%. So early testing, isolation, and home care was the key to control the. So we changed the paradigm. So constantly we have been innovating that now if you have to rapidly diagnose and rapidly, because a lot of the laboratory staff got infected, but the testing performance continued. We were doing 3 shifts in more than 50% of our laboratories, and some of them were doing 2 shifts, and we were being able to do about 12 to 13 lakh RT-PCR tests per day. And the rapid antigen tests were increased suddenly so that we could identify the positives and isolate them very fast. Now, if you look at this, we were doing about 8 lakh tests in February. We went up to 22 lakhs, which is the highest ever in the world. 22.17 is the highest by any country really in the world. And then we found at that point, the national testing positivity was 23%. 23%, that 1 out of 4 individual was positive if he was tested. And then it has dropped to 8.5%. And today it is somewhere around 6%. And the recommendation that the Icmr gives is that any district which is less than 5% positivity for 1 week can open up and ensure that more and more of its elderly population, 70%, have to be vaccinated for opening up those districts. So that district level lockdown during the second wave has also been a blessing in disguise for the country, and the guidance provided by the Icmr, the Ministry of Health, the National Task Force, and the Ministry of Home Affairs was heeded to by the states, and those district level lockdowns have what has saved us during this second wave, but we are still not out, and we need to be very careful, as we had predicted in January, that the seroprevalence is 22 to 24%. 80% of the people in India are still vulnerable. That was I'll talk about the third zero survey. So we said we have to rationalize the RT-PCR test. We have to increase rapid antigen tests. We have to do home testing. And for phase 3, when the epidemic is spread or the pandemic is spreading to rural areas, we have to do field level and rural areas testing by either the TruNat machines, which are portable, or by the antigen tests, which are now produced in large quantities in the country. And our target is to reach up to 45 lakhs by the end of June, if need be, and we have the capability for the same. So that is another strong pillar, as I mentioned, of testing that remains strong. And the Indian industry, the Indian entrepreneurs have done very well as far as that is concerned. So we have said increase the RAT testing. Our rapid antigen tests have to be done in private facilities, can be done in schools, colleges, community centers, resident welfare associations, and this can be also for augmenting testing in rural areas, in primary health centers, or even by a small van. And these instructions have been given at the time of the second wave to all districts through the chief secretaries, and they are setting up these facilities at primary health centers so that rapid antigen tests can rapidly identify those who are positive, and then home isolation and home treatment can be done. Because in this second wave, we did focus a lot on home treatment because of the fact that the beds had become, because it was such a tsunami site of a wave that we had limited number of beds. We had projected for up to 150,000 to 200,000 beds, but this went to up to 400,000, which was unimaginable, much more than what has happened in Italy, USA, United Kingdom, or in Iran, or in Spain, that they witnessed in both any of the waves. So this wave was the biggest wave that has been seen anywhere else in the world. We also talked about home testing, and that has now been available, and several companies have started marketing this home testing, and this is for nasal testing, for home testing, and you can get a positive result. A negative result does not mean negative. Here, that has to always be remembered. In all rapid tests, only the positive test is important. If it is positive, it is positive. If it is negative, it does not mean that it is negative. You need to do a test, RT-PCR test again, if you are having symptoms. Now, in terms of research, what has ICMR done for the last 18 months? And we set up the National Task Force on the 18th of March, 2020. And this National Task Force was made of experts which were notified to the Ministry of Health and the Supreme Court. And we have been meeting regularly for more than 45 times over the last 1.5 years to decide the calibration of testing strategy, to advise the government on lockdown, to provide oversight on ongoing research, to develop clinical protocols, to develop advisories, etc. And this has been constantly advising the government. In terms of research, we have been giving advisories to the government on different aspects of how to handle the psychological impact of the disease, how to handle bereavement, how to handle mucormycosis, how to do human home care. We have published 4 issues of the Indian Journal of Medical Research, and over and above that, we have had press briefings and also advisories for various different testing letters and stakeholders, etc. And also, we've had over and above these journal publications, we have had 111 publications in peer-reviewed international journals on public health, clinical research, vaccines, viral variants, psychosocial behavior, bioethics, and diagnostics. We have a common ethics committee, which we rapidly created and for the ICMR. And this is all the work that has been the ICMR's contribution for global science. And I will talk about one major contribution that the whole world has listened to. We have done an international symposium on science and ethics of vaccines in 2020. We had participants like Stanley Potkin, who is the father of vaccines, Peter Piot from the London School. We had Dr. Anthony Fauci, the WHO, all participate in the symposium, and the proceedings are all available on our website. And I will encourage all you participants to please go to the ICMR website and have a look at the volume and amount of work that has been done for this testing, vaccines, guidelines, research, which is cannot be matched by many countries in the world. And it has been much more than many countries in the world. And we owe it to our scientists who have been performing during the lockdown and have been working. We have the vaccine portal also, which has been created at the ICMR. And we had an international symposium on One Health, which is a special issue of the Indian Council of Medical Research, because we know that we have altered our environment, we have altered our ecology, and we have altered our zoonosis. And that is why we have cut the forest. We have asked the bats to move out of that forest. We have asked our animals to move out of forest. And that is why these diseases are being spread in humans. And that is why the concept of One Health is very important. And we had an international symposium with the Wellcome Trust and other stakeholders from all the ministries from India, whether it be Animal Husbandry, Department of Biotechnology, Department, DRDO, DST, CSIR, and all participated in this symposium to set up India's role for tackling with these pandemics as a One Health, and a Center for One Health is being set up at Nagpur with the BSL-4 laboratories. The work has started, the land has been acquired, and we are setting that up very fast. And that was announced by the Honorable Finance Minister in the budget. And now the work has already started, and we are setting up that Institute of One Health. In terms of therapeutics, we have developed equine hyperimmunoglobulin through ICMR NIV with Biological Evans, Serum Institute, and CRI Kasauli. And we have been developed this, and this has also been published. We have developed human monoclonal antibodies with ICGB and Department of Biotechnology. This is what I wanted to talk about, convalescent plasma. Now, if you look at what has the world contributed to in terms of drugs, in terms of therapeutics for COVID-19, we have find that everyone had tried to repurpose, but nothing has really changed except one study from the United Kingdom, which had said that steroids and cortisone are beneficial. And that was their contribution to the world. The second contribution for India was this convalescent plasma does not work. This was the largest trial in the world done during the lockdown from April to July last year. And this was a second major contribution which the world has seen. And the British Medical Journal has published 2 editorials on this. And this was a contribution of India for COVID-19 pandemic. The United States has done small contribution. Remdesivir is one of their contribution, but that does not reduce mortality. That only reduces hospital stay from 11 days to 7 days. That is all. That is all. So we have to remember that these are the 3 major contributions from the United States, from USA, and from India as far as this pandemic is concerned in terms of the treatment part of it. And this is the very systematic study which was done in 40 hospitals during the lockdown, where people worked day and night and did this data. We participated in the WHO multicentric trial where remdesivir did not show much benefit on mortality, and 10% of the patients were from India, and we also participated in this multicentric trial. Now we were approached by every MP, every MLA, every scientist had an innovation, and they wanted it to be tested by ICMR. So ICMR was under the gun of all the science agencies in the country that why don't you test my product? Why don't you test my product? My product is the best. My product is the best. So my synthetic product, my commercial product, my compound, this can be repurposed. This I have found this, and many of them were hideous claims, right up to crocodile blood, to Havan, to piercing the ear, to all kinds of claims were there. Now we were targeted by all the agencies in the world, in the country, that ICMR has to take care of this. We were able to develop a screening of antiviral properties. We set up antiviral compounds with all the science ministry, and we tested them at ICMR, NIV, Pune, NIMR, DRM, NCM, and various other laboratories in the country. And we have not been able to find any compound which is really working against this virus. People have some claims people have, but nothing has been peer-reviewed by the National Task Force and approved in the National Task Force as a treatment. And I will talk about the treatment once we come to the National Task Force, where steroids, oxygen, tocilizumab, little bit of remdesivir. Maybe hydroxychloroquine and ivermectin have some role because they are antiviral. That has been demonstrated in the past. So this is all. Rest all we have not been able to ratify by scientific studies to be used. In terms of clinical studies, we have the National COVID Clinical Registry. Now, this clinical registry was looking at hospitalized patients, and this we were late in setting it up. We set it up in August of last year, and in August to November, we had more than 40 hospitals who had all hospitalized patients, and we have the data of treatment symptoms of 20,000 patients, and we've compared the first wave and the second wave, and I'll talk about that. So we look at the data available from hospitalized patients from 40 hospitals across the country from 1st September to 11th May of 2021, and we divided the first wave 15th August. As I mentioned, we were slightly late in starting this registry because we were dealing with laboratories, lockdowns, and testing and all those issues. So we set this up in August, and then from August to January, 31st January is first wave, and second wave is from 1st January to 11th May. That is what we have frozen the data and analyzed that, and we've sent it for publication, and it's in press at the moment, but I will share you this data. Now, during the mean age in both the waves was more or less same, although in the second wave, it was slightly lower, 48 years compared to 50 years. This is the mean age. The 0 to 9 categories was 4.4%, slightly 0 to 19, slightly higher than 3.8% in the first wave. 20 to 39 was 26.5, higher than the first wave, which was 23.7. In terms of more than 70 years or more than 40 years, 70%, 70% in both the waves. So in terms of more than 40 years, 70% of the people were involved in both the waves. However, the younger population was slightly more in the first wave and younger people. And this wave has been blamed because of the variants and also the high transmissibility and the rapidity with which this wave came, with 80% of the population still vulnerable, as we have talked in the third Zero survey, and the people laying down their guards and other factors which contributed to this. The symptoms in the second wave and the first wave were pretty similar, with fever and shortness of breath. Fever and shortness of breath being the main symptoms, and shortness of breath was more common during the second wave. The other symptoms, dry cough, fatigue, sore throat, muscle, headache, loss of taste, loss of smell, they were pretty similar, joint pain, abdominal pain, but more important symptoms of shortness of breath and fever. So requirement of supplemental oxygen was clearly much higher during the second wave. It was 50.3% compared to 43% compared to 11,000 in the first wave. These are hospitalized patients who were in the hospital. Requiring mechanical ventilation was also higher, 16% versus 11%. And this is pure good scientific data that has been accepted for publication. And we should have this in the, we have the presented it to the press, but we are sharing more details today. Now, if you compare the first and the second wave, 70% of the admitted patients in both the waves were more than 40 years of age. There was some increase in patients of younger age group. 0 to 19 was 4.4% compared to 3.8%. 20 to 39 was 26.5% compared to 23.7%. In the second wave, lower proportion of patients admitted had comorbidities. So people without diabetes, without hypertension, without risk factors were admitted, and therefore we see the younger population also involved without having the risk factors. Higher proportion had shortness of breath, higher proportion had developed acute respiratory symptoms and required oxygen and mechanical ventilation. Now, the mortality was higher in the second wave, clearly. It was 13.3%. This is hospitalized patients. not 100 COVID patients. Out of those 100 COVID patients, 90 patients are fine on their own. 90 to 95% can get all right. But those 5% who was admitted to the hospital, out of those 5%, the mortality was 13.3% in this wave compared to 10.2% in the previous wave. Now, in terms of outreach, we have this management protocol, which is a single page with AIMS, Icmr, with the Ministry of Health. And this is a dynamic document. It's a living document. We keep on changing it regularly. And we have emphasized for home care in this. We have talked about steroids and the blood thinners, which is another study, again published from the United Kingdom, which showed that blood thinners will be essential in patients who are admitted and will require heparin or low molecular weight heparin. And again, these were products which are, many of them were produced in India. And again, if I were to tell you, the Ministry of Pharmaceuticals, the Department of Pharmaceuticals, and the Ministry of Health have worked 24/7 to ensure that shortage of these testing materials for the tests like D-dimer and for ferritin and the hospitalized patient tests, as well as availability of drugs, common drugs like paracetamol, steroids, the low molecular weight heparins, as well as other drugs like amphotericin B is ensured. And we did face shortage of some liposomal amphotericin B and remdesivir, despite the fact that 6 generic products were being made in India and it was not reducing mortality. Despite that fact, we had to face a lot of flack from different from the press, but we know that this the Department of Pharmacy, as we are talking about the testing and how we have worked overnight, similarly, Department of Pharmaceuticals and the Ministry of Health ensured that these drugs were available, working 24/7 overnight and moving heaven and earth for not only drugs, but DIPP and others for oxygen as well. And this was a whole of government approach, which was an eye-opener even for me when I saw how things were being done by railways, by airlines, by Air Force, in terms of oxygen, in terms of drugs, and that stories are to be written as far as each one of them can be a separate story. This is a home care, which is a one-pager, which we translated into 14 languages, and we talked about the do's: stay at home, sanitize hands, isolate, take rest, cross ventilation, all family members should wear masks, measure body temperature, oxygen saturation, drink plenty of water, lie on your chest and breathe with paracetamol, multivitamin, steam inhalation, and steroid inhalation if symptoms are persisting for more than 5 days. But people have overused steroids in this country, and therefore we have found excess of mucormycosis, and which we are still battling with in the country and still remains a challenge in many parts of the country. In terms of the surveillance studies, which we did during the lockdown and after the lockdown, we were able to develop the indigenous ELISA kit, which we used in the first zero survey. This was the first kit developed in April 2020. During the lockdown, we developed this ELISA and transferred it to 7 companies, including Zydus Cadila, to check the presence of antibodies, and that was used in the first zero survey. Now, if you look at the national zero surveys, which were done across 70 districts, all the 3 zero surveys were done across the same 70 villages, same 70 districts, and 700 villages per wards from 21 states, with multi-stage cluster sampling, 10 villages per ward, and selected population and population proportion to side basis. And May, June, August, September last year, and December, January 2021, we found the seroprevalence was only 0.73, less than 1% in May, June last year, 7.1% in August, September, and 24 in January of this year, where it means that 75% of our population, 75% of 130 crores was still vulnerable to this virus in January, February. This was a key message that has been published in Lancet, Indian Journal of Medical Research, and International Journal of Infectious Diseases. And this is scientifically being done. And these people have, during this lockdown here and here, have gone to the villages with PPE suits and collected blood samples from these patients and done this on a war footing. We have developed the Indian SARS-CoV Consortium with the ICMR, CSIR, DBT, and there we have done genetic sequencing, and we have been able to, from March to April, we found that there was no change in the sequencing and there was no variation that had occurred during the March to August. And this is published in Viruses, a very high impact factor journal, which clearly showed that there was no change. But then in the second phase, we found the different variants, the UK variant, we should not call it, sorry about that, the alpha, beta, the gamma, and the delta variants in India. And here we talk about the alpha variant, which we found in December 2020 from UK returnees in Chennai, and this has been published in Infection. It's in Press. We found the beta variant in South Africa returnees in the Journal of Travel Medicine Infectious Diseases, published, and we isolated it for the first time in India by Icmr laboratory. We cultured it, and we cultured it within 7 days, and we were able to, once we have cultured it, we can tweak our vaccine. We can make our vaccine specifically directed to this by giving this dead virus to the company, Bharat Biotech, and getting the vaccine made by this particular virus. Then we had the Brazilian variant in February 2021 from a UAE returnee who had come from Brazil to UAE and then to Mumbai. And then the Maharashtra in Akola and in Mumbai, we found the Delta variant, which has been, so this Alpha and the Delta have been really responsible for the second wave. In the initial part, it was the Alpha variant, and in the later part, it has become the Delta variant. And that led to the question whether our vaccines are going to work against these variants. We have done the sewage survey for various districts in Mumbai, and we standardized the methodology, and now we are extending it to 9 different sites in the country, because the RNA particle is swallowed and is found in the stool and can also be found in the sewage water, and that can predict the epidemic if it is coming again. And we gave the world the first definition for SARS-CoV reinfection. This was published in the Epidemiology and Infection. This is the first definition again given by India to the world, that 102 days, 2 tests positive and 1 test negative. With this is all from our database. We were able to study several individuals and talk to them on phone and get their reports, and were able to get this published. We have the biorepositories for all the viruses, and we have the vaccines. Now, I will take 10, if we have some more time, say 5-7 minutes, I can talk about vaccine. Is that okay?
Sure, sir. Please go ahead. Okay.
Now, if we look at vaccine development, we have to identify a vaccine candidate. We have to do preclinical studies for safety, immunity, and for dosage. Then we have to do a preclinical studies in monkeys for safety, immunity, and dosage, and the safety trial in individuals, which is phase 1, and then phase 2, and then phase 3 in large number of individuals. Normally, vaccine can take from 4 to 5 years to 15 years, but fast tracking of various steps in the pandemic and parallel phases 1 and 2 can be done together, and preclinical can be done together. If you look at the traditional vaccine development, it can take up to 15 years. But here it has been fast tracked from 10 months to 1.5 years. And we have various platforms available for vaccine developed. These are the front runners with their efficacies for the wild type of Wuhan virus. That is the original Wuhan virus. Whereas now recently we have found that this Pfizer is being in effect a very low efficacy against the Delta variant that is found in India, and it is 3-fold reduction in its efficacy. That has just been published yesterday in the Lancet, where they have shown. So the whole virus vaccine we will talk about is something like the 78%, which is the Bharat Biotech Icmr vaccine, and then we have the Russian vaccine and the Johnson & Johnson and Novavax. So we have a whole large number of vaccines, which are three are still are at the moment available in India, and rest are going to be available in India. The 3 that are available are Covaxin, Covishield, and Sputnik. And Icmr has facilitated for Bharat Biotech and for Serum Institute, as well as for Zydus Cadila, and we have also held biological events. So we have from our institute at NIV, Pune, we have helped all these vaccine manufacturers, but our main partnership was with Covaxin, where we will talk about more detail. Covishield, the studies done in UK, had done animal studies and some phase 1, phase 2, and phase 3 trials in 11,000 participants, where it was overall 70.4% efficacy. That was the UK studies in Covishield. And the study for Covishield that was done in India, we have found it safe but the final results for placebo, we found that the Indian product is similar to the UK product, and it's absolutely similar. It's non-inferior, and that was demonstrated. In terms of Covaxin and Bharat Biotech, we gave them the virus, which we isolated in March 13th of last year, which was the 5th country in the world to isolate this virus. We gave it to Bharat Biotech. We characterized their vaccine, and we did preclinical studies on small and large animals, and the phase 1 and phase 2 and phase 3 studies, which have been completed. 2 of them have been published. The third results are available with interim analysis, and other sub-studies are planned. So we characterized the virus. As I mentioned, we isolated the virus in March of last year. Then the alpha strain and the beta strain were isolated, and we were able to demonstrate the efficacy of vaccines against them, and I will show that slide. In terms of the small animals, mice, rats, and rabbits, we did a 28-day studies showing safety and neutralizing antibodies, and not only the TLR response, but also the TH1 response, antibody response in mice, rats, and rabbits, and that has been published in iScience. And in fact, more importantly, the adjuvant that we have used for the first time has featured on the cover story of iScience as one of the novel innovations. And this is the front cover of that journal is talking about our novel IMDG adjuvant, which we have used in this vaccine. Hamster challenge studies were done up to 2 months, and we demonstrated robust humoral response, TH1 biased response, and rapid viral clearance from the upper and the lower respiratory tract of the hamsters up to 65 days. And this was found to be done. This all work was done in July, August last year. But more importantly, I want to talk about this monkey challenge studies. Now, this monkey challenge studies was a huge, big challenge for us, for Icmr, and we had to get monkeys. So we got all the permissions during the lockdown, April, May, June last year. We captured the monkeys during the lockdown. During the lockdown, the monkeys had left and gone into the forests. So we had to capture on the border of Telangana, the borders of Maharashtra, and we captured those monkeys. We got all the permissions. We tested them for their health. All the blood samples were tested. We tested their x-rays. We purchased x-ray machines. We also requested one of our scientists from the headquarters, who was a pulmonologist. He was flown by an Indian Air Force flight at the night to Pune, and he could do bronchoscopy. So the monkeys were challenged with the 2 doses of the viruses, and the virus challenge was done by bronchoscopy into the 3rd generation bronchi, and the virus was given. And every day bronchoalveolar lavage was done of all the 24 monkeys, and samples were collected, and we sent this for publication to Nature Communications. However, we received several notices from animal activists in India, and many of the animal activists even wrote to the journal. So the journal wanted a certificate of each and every monkey's health, and that was sent to them, and then we got this paper published. So India fights against India. So we've had all kinds of things that we're talking about when we're doing this. So this monkey challenge study was the first study of its kind done in India for vaccines. The only other countries that do it for the UK vaccine, that was done in USA. China and USA are the other 2 countries who are doing these monkey studies. Maybe Australia, I'm not aware of, but India we were able to do this and clearly demonstrated that it is working well. We did the phase 1 study published in Lancet Infectious Diseases. We did the phase 2 study published in Lancet Infectious Diseases, clearly demonstrating the robustness of this vaccine. The phase 3 studies also demonstrated 78% efficacy on 26,000 individuals, and that was done clearly. And these are the publications of Covaxin, the scientific literature. This is what I was talking about, the cover story of iScience, which is talked about the adjuvant which we have done for the study, the Nature Communications, iScience on the hamster study, then the clinical studies, and now we are compiling the paper for the phase 3 studies, and some are going to submit it to Lancet Infectious Diseases maybe within a week's time, and that will pave the way for WHO pre-qualification for Covaxin. Then the efficacy of Covaxin against variants of concern regarding the alpha strain, it is working as well as the regarding the beta strain, it is slightly less effective, and the gamma as well as the delta, but it is working well. We have clearly demonstrated it by taking the sera of co-vaccine vaccinated individual and giving it in the laboratory and then testing it on animals and on the vaccine culture, on cultures. In terms of virus sharing, the ICMR has shared the virus with several industries, several scientific institutions, and we have given them viruses for ELISA development, for anti-sera development in horses, for vaccine development, for R&D, and all this virus because it's on the WHO blueprint. So this virus cannot be, can be stored by someone else. So we have clear-cut agreements which are signed on stamp papers, and we have to take all kinds of permissions, how much virus we have shared and what they are doing with this virus. So that is a very ethico-legal question, and we have taken care of all that. We have systems at the BSL-4 laboratory in Pune. Now, BSL-4 laboratory, there is only one BSL-4 laboratory in India, and the first one in Asia was set up at NIV Pune in 2012-2013. The second one, safe BSL-4 laboratory, was the famous or infamous Wuhan laboratory in China, set up in 2017. And now across the world, there are about 35 laboratories, and we are setting up more. We have one more animal BSL-4 laboratory, which is in Bhopal, and we are setting up one in Nagpur at the One Health Institute. This BSL-4 was a vision of our earlier leaders, earlier director generals, who have been able to set this up, and therefore we've been able to become self-sufficient right from 2007, 2008. No samples go from India to USA for testing, and now we have been testing in such large scale. In terms of new patents, several patents have been filed in India. We have been giving data for NCDC, Ministry of Health, NDMA, PMO, state governments. So ICMR hosts the data entry portal, which is the largest database in the world for testing, and we share this with personal identifiers, and confidentiality and anonymized data is shared. And we have the pathway where the state apps and the direct data comes into the national testing database that is given to NDMA, NIC, Ministry of Health for disease policy trends, for policy planning, resource planning, for clinical decision making, Ministry of Health, NCDC, National Informatics Center, and various other. We also have data sharing for other scientists who want to work on it, and there is policy been there for the last 9 months, where we have been doing responsible data sharing with so that misinterpretation and safety and security concerns are taken care of. In terms of partnership, as I mentioned, we had all kinds of products. So ICMR coordinated an interdepartmental network for examining novel claims. Now, there were all kinds of novel claims, and so we had more than 538 direct applications and 103 applications. So about 600-700 products which were in the Ayush, herbal medicines, disinfectants, ozone, UV, fabrics, masks, gloves, AIs, technology, tools, new entities, repurposed drugs, and others. And they were all tested by different institutions in the country to give results. And we partnered with all these institutions for validation, antiviral screening, devices, and biorepositories and indigenous vaccine diagnosis. So it has been a whole of government approach with the Cabinet Secretary, the empowered groups of the Prime Minister of India, the National Task Force, which we informed the Supreme Court, the Ministry of Health, the Drug Controller, the National Accreditation Board, NDMA, the Health Ministry, state governments, surveillance, and the Science Ministries, all helping out and taking care of this pandemic. It has been a Herculean task, and the second wave was a quick one, and we had to do in a very short time. And that is a separate major story which can be talked. And we lost more than 28 of our colleagues who succumbed to both first and the second waves of ICMR, and we do remember them and pay our tributes to them for their hard work. And I thank you for your attention, and I will close here because attention is the rarest and the purest form of generosity. And I thank you for your kind attention. Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much. And now the floor is open for the question. I would like Madam Pankaj Mittal, Madam, for kindly attend the questions you really want to ask.
Sir, thank you for the excellent presentation. actually the type of narrative which is portrayed before us in the televisions and all, it seems India is not doing enough in the field of vaccines or testing and all these things. But the way you have presented, sir, the yeoman's job the ICMR is doing, it is really marvelous. I mean, it is hard to believe that so much is being done, and the type of picture we are getting is that nothing is being done. So thanks a lot, sir. Now today, many of our vice chancellors would be knowing that how much of work is being done at the level of the government, at the level of the ICMR, and so much, I mean, right from testing till the vaccination, so much of work, sir. I'm really amazed. Thank you very much for the presentation. Sir, I'll start with 1 or 2 questions, and then I'll ask my fellow colleagues to ask, sir. One is, sir, you were talking about the science and ethics of vaccines. We had done a international conference on that. Sir, was there a talk on universal access to vaccines and medicines? One is that, sir. Second, sir, pardon me if I have not understood clearly, but then I saw in your presentation there was a mention of zero survey in which 24% of the people were found to be positive. So with 24%, are we approaching herd immunity, or it is too far so far?
So I'll answer your second question first. Now, for herd immunity, we need to have at least 70% of seropositivity, 70%. So we are far away from that, and that is exactly what we told the nation, we told the government, we told all stakeholders that only 24%, so 76% of the population of 130 crores, which is about 95 crores, are still vulnerable and can catch the disease any point in time. Now, in terms of the second point, and we are starting with the 4th sero survey on Monday, where we are going to look at the same 70 districts, but we are also going to look at healthcare workers, that if we have any other wave, the healthcare workers, whether they have reached herd immunity or whether they have received some sort of safety because of the vaccines, as well as we are going to look at children also in the sero survey, because many people are saying that more and more children will be affected if we have infection. But I do not agree with that. But we still will look at the data from the sero survey and be able to know that. In terms of the vaccine ethics, I think there has been lots of issues, right from vaccine hesitancy to vaccine eagerness to vaccine nationalism to vaccine. In many countries in the West, the WHO created a facility called COVAX, which was an international facility wherein everyone puts in a pool of vaccine to be supplied to some countries like Africa to vaccinate 20% of their population, only 20% of their population. Now, out of the total doses in the WHO COVAX facility, we have to realize that 70% of those doses were from India. About 25% were from the Serum Institute, from the AstraZeneca plant in Korea, and only 2 to 3% was from the rest of the world. So even the best of nations have not given to the world. They have kept it all for themselves and vaccinated, and that is what was touted as vaccine nationalism. Now the vaccine certification is also being started in many parts of the world, and many nations disagree to that. So those are again debates which will happen. But more importantly, I figure that in our country, if we did not manufacture our own vaccines, if we were not a vaccine power in the world, we would have been at this moment begging the world for vaccines. We have vaccinated more than 17 crore Indians for first dose, 17 crores. United, and our population is 133 crores. United States has vaccinated 16.9 crores and their population is 33 crores. So they have vaccinated more than 50% of the population. So we have to remember, we have a big population, but we have a big powerhouse and muscle to manufacture vaccine. There have been some slowness because the first few months, there was 2 months, there was vaccine hesitancy. Then the next 1 or 2 months, we had a stockpile of vaccines, which we used. So one thought that the rate of vaccination is going to be that. Then the stockpile came down. Then we came to a normal speed. But in August, hopefully, we should be able to ramp up our vaccination speed much more with more and more manufacturing facilities for both these large vaccine manufacturers as well as other vaccine manufacturers who will be having their vaccines available.
Thank you, sir. And sir, does this COVID virus differentiate between male and female? Because the most of the data we are seeing.
No. If you look at the first wave, second wave, we have looked at our registry. There is no difference.
Okay, so both mortality rate is same in both the sexes. Okay. So this remdesivir you were talking about, this remdesivir is not sort of a Ramban, which it was supposed to be, and steroids were, but then the overdosage of steroids led to this black fungus and all. So you feel, I mean, a combination of both is good, or steroid should be given, remdesivir should not be given? I mean, what?
See, I would leave it to the treating physician. I don't think we should get involved in that. But more important to remember is that remdesivir is an American product by Gilead, which was licensed and now being manufactured by 6 of our Indian companies. The cost has come down dramatically. We have had some studies as well as the WHO study, which has shown, the WHO study has clearly shown that it does not reduce mortality in COVID-19, does not reduce mortality. The studies from the United States have shown that it does reduce the hospitalization days, that from 11 days to 7 days, and it should clearly be given within the first 7 days to people who are on oxygen, and then only the benefit can be there in terms of reduction in the number of days required in the hospital. So it is definitely not a Ramban. It has antiviral properties, yes, but it has not found to be a magic wand as we thought it would be, as we thought for lopinavir, as we thought for Tamiflu, as we thought for favipiravir. None of them have been a Ramban very clearly. So I want to make it very simple. Steroids are required in people who are more than 6-7 days of admission and are not responding to treatment. They respond very well to steroids, and they also need to be given blood thinners because they are in the hospital and are on the bed. So these are the 2 drugs which are useful. But if they go into a cytokine storm, then there is some data to show that tocilizumab may be beneficial. And that is why in our national treatment protocol that we have made with the group of experts, we have clearly kept remdesivir in a special box. We have kept the tocilizumab also in a special box, that emergency use only there, that where it can be used. But steroids we have kept in the main protocol for moderate disease and for severe disease. Blood thinners we have kept in the moderate protocol for moderate and severe disease. So, and oxygen we have kept in both moderate and severe disease. So this is very clear and quite simple. So I do not want to complicate it for you people, but remember that this drug is not a Ramban. Yes. Go ahead.
One question is on third wave, but before that, Dr. Vivek Sahuji, who is the Vice Chancellor of KLE Medical University, he is raising his hand. Dr. Sahuji, please.
Yeah, thank you, sir, for a very comprehensive perspective on the role of ICMR. It is really amazing how the ICMR really rose to the occasion and led by example. I mean, we are the frontline workers and we are seeing how the things are unfolding. And ICMR was really the pillar of strength, and in fact, lots of huge amount of work that is under your able leadership. So first of all, congratulations to you and thanks for sharing your perspective here on this platform. As Madam had just said, many of us were not aware as to the great work that is being done by the ICMR. It's good. Again, thanks to the ICMR for having, rather thanks to the AIU for having you on the show. Two limited points which are there. One, just carrying on the discussion forward regarding the zero surveillance. Now, as I said, we are a health science university and we have these frontline workers and we vaccinated our workers. Most of them have got both the jabs. And in some cases, when they have contacted infections and when we did their antibody titers and so on, unfortunately, the antibody titers were negative. So we're not very sure as to what is this phenomena. And whether in any way it can be generalized, or is there any trends or patterns which are evolving as far as the antibody testing which is there? Because I'm not very sure if the serosurveillance is done post vaccination. Maybe it is only limited to the part of the trials which is being done, but post vaccination, if there are any studies which have been done. So that is number one question. And number two is regarding, little bit of confusion about the vaccination. Now, you have elaborated quite in detail about it, but we as a private health science university, we were undertaking vaccination, but suddenly the new guidelines and 1st of May onwards, we were not able to procure any vaccines which are there. And though we have capacities, capabilities, and it's not just about me or our university, but across the country, many of these private organizations, they're not getting the vaccines. So, there is a little confusion as to when we hear about statistics that we're producing 10 crore doses per month, and we're probably vaccinating 5 crores in a month, and maybe 1 crore is still surplus stock. So it's been about that vaccine mystery, or are we not producing enough doses? So there's little confusion. So if you could clarify on these two issues, it will be very helpful.
Sure. As first regarding the antibodies, we do not recommend an antibody test in anyone. The antibodies will depend on the immune response that the individual provides. Okay. And antibody is not the only response. There is cellular response, there is humoral response, which also protects. There may be response from the bone marrow also, which can maybe protect you for much longer time. And many of those are very difficult to measure. That is the first point. The second point I want to say, the serosurvey will give us an idea of what is the approximate antibodies in the country. When we do sampling in 70 districts and 700 villages, so it will give us some idea. It may be plus minus something, but from statistical point of view, we will be able to make some recommendation whether herd immunity is very far away, or we can, because we are going to take in this serosurvey even vaccinated individuals and take and also take with the amount of vaccination that is there, what is the seroprevalence. That is one point. Regarding the two doses, I'll just come. Regarding the 2 doses and the vaccine protection occurs after 2 doses, and 14 days after that, the full protection occurs. But these are disease-modifying vaccines. This will not prevent you from getting the infection. It will reduce you from getting the infection, but it will reduce serious disease and death. If we have analyzed the full data of about people vaccinated and who have received 2 doses from the first week of April to the middle of May, 6 weeks, about 6 crore people, we looked at their data, and we found all those who are admitted. This is at the peak of the wave, when people are all being admitted and we are struggling, and that was really an onslaught that happened. And then in that onslaught, we found that the mortality was 0.12%. That is, 1 per 1,000 will die if he has received both doses. It protects at least 4 times better than not vaccinated. That is, I think that answers your question. Now, in terms of the number of vaccines, as I mentioned, during the month of January, when vaccination started on 16th of January, there was tremendous amount of vaccine hesitancy. There was regular vaccine production, and there was a stockpile which was kept from October, November, December by both these companies. So all that was given and released, but in January there was less. February suddenly picked up. March, April, we utilized the entire stockpile. And then in May, June, we came down to this same standard speed that you are talking about of 8 or 10 crores or whatever exact number I do not know, but that is where we stand. But what we have been assured by various manufacturers is that they are going to ramp up tremendously because the Bharat Biotech has created 4 facilities in the public sector. They have set up their own big facility In Bangalore, the serum has also started using more of its bioreactors for developing the vaccine. So I think we should have larger number of vaccines available, and we had reached up to 43 lakhs or 44 lakhs per day, which was a very, very, very good. And if you look at the polio program that we have done in the past, we have even reached up to 6-7 crores per week or more when we did the polio immunization program. So we do have the capacity to do that, but we will all have to be disciplined and little patient. Now, here I want to tell patient, because if we didn't have a vaccine in India, then what would we be doing? If there was no vaccine manufactured in India, then what would we be doing? We have to ensure that all our elderly are vaccinated, all above the age of 45 are vaccinated, 45 with comorbidities are vaccinated. We have to remember that the mortality of above 40 is more than 80%. So getting them vaccinated has to be a priority. So prioritized group have to be vaccinated first. So that is the most important thing. The younger people will contribute to the nation if they can wait a little bit, few weeks, it is a matter of few weeks when we will have maybe 6, 8, 10 weeks where we will have more vaccines available and they can be streamlined. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, sir. Explained it all. Actually, I just wanted that, okay, the private players also, we have the capacities, but we don't have the vaccine. As you said, we have to be patient, and hopefully I think the scenario will increase. Thank you for the clarifications.
So Professor Ramesh Goyal, who is the Vice Chancellor of Delhi University of Pharmaceutical Sciences.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Mittal, for giving me this opportunity. I know, being associated with ICMR in one way or other, the gigantic work they have been doing. Just quick question. See, if we have done antiviral studies in other country and we are trying to register in our country, do we need to not available at that time? We could not approach that.
Yeah, your question got cut in the middle.
Yes.
If
okay.
Alok can repeat it. Or
Sir, can send time a message?
Okay.
I think your network is weak. Sir, can you off your camera? Please off your camera. Sir, please off your camera.
Okay,
I think network is weak. Okay. Yeah, now you can.
Okay. My question is that if suppose we have done the antiviral study in other country and the same drug is being applied here for the approval, do we need to be tested in the in the Indian lab for the activity?
Yeah, so that has been liberalized in a big way, even for vaccines, even for testing commodities. Those which have been tested by the European, the Japanese FDA, the US FDA, and the UK MHRA are being accepted very easily from that perspective. But having said that, I would just like to add one more point and a perspective, which is most important. Now, we know that the United States spends nearly up to 20% of its GDP. And its GDP is $20 trillion. So 20% of that is nearly 4 trillion, which is more than India's economy. And they have all the wherewith in terms of the research and antiviral drugs and properties and access to many laboratories, and they're working 24/7 to find a new antiviral. They have had more than 600,000 mortality. Now, if you multiply that mortality to our population, which is 4 times the population of USA, so that will be about 24 lakh people have died in the USA. So I don't see that any antiviral we have been able to strike gold or find it that is going to be working. There have been monoclonals, there have been polyclonals, they are being used in early disease, but no major randomized trial has been able to demonstrate these antivirals to be, as Madam has said, the Rama.
Well,
unfortunately.
Yeah. No, actually, it was one of the finding. There are other things also which that the same drug is suppressing the cytokine surge also, and it is a AC2 is the target, because throughout the world we found only 1 or 2 labs working on that. So this is one thing. And second, my big finding which you had in Icmr, the sewage, the survival of RNA in sewage. Now this is a great concern, because okay, you can have in the hospitals that discipline, the protocols to be followed for disposal, but it is not there in the public, and it may be dangerous if it is there. So this is the
here I want to tell very one thing, that the virus requires a human host to survive.
Yes.
We are finding the dead virus in the sewage, which is the RNA. We are finding sometimes the RT-PCR test to be positive after 3 weeks or 6 weeks. That is the dead virus which is present, which is the dead virus, which is RNA. So that RNA is what we find in the sewage. It is not the live virus. People have asked question whether the virus is going to be surviving in human bodies which are being cremated. But even in the persons who have died, the virus ceases to survive once it does not have a living host. That is important.
So we have we are conscious of the time and it is getting very late. So we have the last question from Professor S.P. Singh. He is the Vice Chancellor of Royal Global University in Assam. Professor S.P. Singh, please.
Thank you. Yeah. Thank you, Dr. Mittal, for giving me a chance. Sir, I have very two simple questions. It was excellent, informative discourse today. I learned a lot. Question number one, that once 18 plus people are allowed for vaccination in this country, and I'm a vice chancellor and concerned with my students. So the student across this country may not be given a priority for the vaccination, so that the institutions have the students in the campus soon and they all are fully vaccinated. And after 15 days of second vaccination, at least they're allowed to come, because there's a huge loss going on in this country with respect to education. Question number two is that in India, once somebody become COVID positive and after becoming COVID negative, how many days he is allowed to take vaccination? Because it has been read in the newspaper 3 months, but in United States of America and other countries, it is 15 days only. So this is a little discrepancy which is in the mind of many people who are COVID positive once became negative and quickly want to get vaccinated, but they have been asked to get it vaccinated after 3 months. So these two questions to you, Dr. Baru. Thank you so much.
Yes, very important and very valid questions. As I mentioned, and I have repeated the same, that most important is to vaccinate the vulnerable prioritized group as number one. We have to ensure that all above 60, all above 45, all 45 with comorbidities need to be vaccinated first, and they need to get herd immunity. 70% in, supposing my district is Dibrugarh. So in Dibrugarh, all those who are above 60 and all above 45 with comorbidities need to be vaccinated first. In terms of your question regarding students, I would ensure that teachers be vaccinated first. The teachers have to be vaccinated. The professors have to be vaccinated first. And subsequently, they need to be vaccinated. We need to ensure that students are vaccinated and things become normal. As you have seen, the decision regarding the class 12 examination has been taken by a concerted decision that we are still in the second phase. We are still having more than 1 lakh cases every day in India. In the first wave, we had highest was 1,11,000. So we are still higher than the first wave. We are still having a mortality of anywhere 2,500 to 3,000 per day. We have to, and that is why the examinations have been cancelled. We as vice chancellors have to ensure and mentally be prepared that we have to be prepared for the end of the year. We have to be prepared for the end of the year. That is most important. We have to be prepared till the end of the year. As I mentioned, we have to have patience. The vaccination has to be done, and unless 70% of the vaccination of that particular district is done, for the to the vulnerable population, and the test positivity rate is less than 5%, that district should not be opened up. Today, I'm giving you one example. In the first week of April, we had 200 districts which were more than 10% positive. In the last week of April, we had nearly 600 districts which were more than 10% positive. Today, we have about 200 districts, that is 1/3 of India, still more than 10% positive. We have 400 districts which have gone down below 5%, and those 400 districts should ensure, whilst they are opening up, to also vaccinate their prioritized population more than 70%. This is a very scientific strategy which will ensure that the lockdown and opening up of the lockdown is very scientific, and we do not get another big wave. So that wave can be avoided, and we may not have it if we are able to follow this in various districts accordingly. So I wish India all the best from that perspective.
Second question was on that, how many days after the COVID negative you can vaccinate?
Yes, now this is a very dynamic process, and as we have talked about calibrating of testing, similarly calibration of vaccination, typically the scientific understanding is that if you have had a COVID infection, and I myself had it in December, so the vaccination I took after 3 months. I took my first dose in end of March and the second dose in end of April. So vaccination should be done 3 months after a typical COVID infection. That is well established, although the United States was initially 3 months, then it came to 1 month, and then they have even come to 15 days. There are questions of in the scientific community also arising regarding interchangeability of vaccines. So that also has happened serendipity in different parts of the country. It has been studied in Spain also. They have found that when we mix vaccines, we are finding that the antibody response is much higher. However, the reactions are also much more when we are combining or mixing antibodies. So that also has to be studied. So again, it's a dynamic process, and we have to gradually evolve. Any decision made in a hurry will lead to problems. So this 12 weeks agenda has been working well since the 1st of May, that after first dose, 12 weeks for second dose of Covishield, 4 weeks for Covaxin, and after infection, 12 weeks for so. So this 12 weeks stands. All lactating women can take vaccines. Regarding pregnant women, we are just going to issue the advisory. It is very clear that this is a dead virus vaccine, the Covaxin, like the influenza vaccine. So it probably can be given to pregnant women. We do not have the data yet, but the advisory will say this. The Covishield data is not yet being generated also, but we have found some animal studies where they have demonstrated, which are called DART studies, where they have demonstrated some efficacy in pregnant animals. So the recommendation may be that we can give it with adequate precautions. However, in Brazil, it was approved in pregnant women, and we found the deaths of one patient immediately after it was approved. So we have to be very careful with these vaccines. At the same time, we have to have a delicate balance between vaccine hesitancy and vaccine eagerness. So that balance has to be maintained depending on what the country has in terms of supplies, what the country has in terms of demonstration of its safety and efficacy. And from my perspective, the whole virus vaccine, which is the Covaxin, developed by Icmr and BBIL, is a standard, classic, old school vaccine, which should work well. It may not be like a part of it like mRNA vaccines, which is a absolutely new technology, very modern technology, and those can be tweaked depending on the variant very rapidly, and may have to be tweaked if we have to get the Pfizer vaccine in India. The vaccine which they give is found to be less effective against the Delta variant. So all these multiple questions arise, and we are trying our best with, again, whole of government approach to try to get these vaccines. Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir. It was really amazing. Thank you very much.
Ramapani madam is the question last.
Thanks a lot, Dr. Alok.
Just one question. Can I ask one question?
Yes.
Yeah. Sir, when the COVID will be over, sir? Any guess?
So, that's a very, very good question. I think there are how many airlines in this world, if you can answer that? There would be about 100 airlines in the world.
Yes, sir.
They will all give me a free ticket to fly to Stockholm to get the Nobel Prize. So if I can answer that question.
Nobody can answer that question.
Can I ask one question, ma'am?
Yeah, Madam Ramapani.
No, it's not the question.
Quickly, madam.
It's not the question. It's only a compliment. Sir, we read in the newspapers in which only 2 or 3 statements normally given by sometimes yourself, sometimes your colleagues. But today, what we have learned out of your lecture, it's really a knowledge-giving occasion to all of us. As a matter of fact, as Vice Chancellor, we are very much lack of this type of information. Think about the large population of this country. Dr. Balram should reach all the parts of the country, all the people of the country as well. Then only the people have more confidence, not only on ICMR, on our Honorable Prime Minister and the government also. It must come out very openly, and your talks should be translated into regional languages. It must reach nook and corner of the entire country, sir. Then only we'll have some sorts of satisfaction. We will not have any more apprehension, because a lot of apprehension is there. People are giving a lot of misgiving here, and people come to a conclusion that government is not doing, and people at the top are not doing different. I must thank the government, especially Honorable Prime Minister, having chosen a person like you to get the ICMR. Really, you deserve, sir. And the way in which you have explained not only the technical things, even how much difficulty you had, even capturing the monkeys, and told that India fights against India. These are all really a tough task. And you have lost your colleagues. Rather to say, our colleagues are 26 number. I salute you, sir, and we salute ICMR, sir. Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you, sir. And sir, we have recorded the lecture. It will be available on the AIU website for all the Vice Chancellors to see. And we'll appeal to all the Vice Chancellors, faculty members, and the students to watch it and know that what we are doing in India, it's not that what you're reading in the newspapers and the TVs. I mean, you have to really know what we are doing in India and how good we are doing. So we'll put it on the AIU website, sir.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Madam Ramapani is
one
requesting
last
for long.
question.
The
other day there was a news in TV that excess of antibodies in the COVID-affected children are causing organ damages. They have reported that there were about 100 children and 2 of them died of organ damage. So what is the authenticity of that news? And secondly, if that is so, like how we are taking care of vaccination to the children so that such type of things do not happen? This is my question, sir.
Yeah, so it is very simple that for vaccination of children is definitely not recommended at the moment. And as I mentioned that it is an evolving field, once we have more data available for vaccinating children, for knowing the seroprevalence in the children, for knowing these kind of things that the antibodies in the children, we will be in a more unique position to advise the government, advise whether the children can be vaccinated. Currently, many countries, when the learned Vice Chancellor from Assam had mentioned about opening up for schools, the universities, many countries in the world have opened up schools for primary schools because those children are protected. Those children don't carry that much. So primary schools are open while secondary schools were closed. And that was found to be a successful experiment in many countries, that opening up classes 1 to 5 may be a wise thing to do before we open up classes 6 to 12 and also the university level where the adults who are more vulnerable or getting more vulnerable to the disease.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much. I mean, thanks for clarifying all our doubts, and also thanks for spending so much of time, sir. We had requested you for 1 hour, and it is 1 hour and 45 minutes, and you have patiently heard everybody, and you said that questions is a virtue. You show the last slide, hearing with attention and the patience, that is a virtue. So thank you very much, sir. Thanks a lot. I'll request Dr. Alok Mishra to give a formal vote of
Madam,
thanks.
someone is raising also hand for long.
Hey, ab chhod do, Mishra ji, just leave it.
Yeah.
And just give formal vote of thanks.
मैम मेरा एक प्रश्न था सर से
Please,
जी
actually
because it is already very late. It is already
can I request to drop a mail or something so that we really we are actually
because sir has to
crossing the limit. I think you don't mind. I think you don't mind.
Okay, no, sir. No, sir.
So, sir, I would like to thank on behalf of AIU and myself, Dr. Balram Bhargav, sir, for taking time out of his very busy schedule. I can understand because I'm following, and sir was last moment was also things were can exceed because too many important meeting was really lined up. So, sir, share the way your expertise and clarifies our doubts and so patiently. And also it's a good time for me for reunion. We spent some time in Ames during the gallery. Sir was at last minute, we remember. So that's a good time to find our professor as really to such esteemed position. So I'm really thankful, sir. Remember, I thank all honorable vice chancellors, officials of the various ministries, and all other participants for making the session successful. So thanks to our vice president, Thirumagam sir, basically for constant encouragement and support. That you understand that sir is always putting the energy in AIU meetings and really to his support all the way. Sir, thank you very much, sir. And gratitude to our Honorable Secretary General, Madam is very dynamic and always like we like bring an idea, Madam, just to create whole thing and always ready for at any hour. So Madam is really, I would like to thanks from all family, for your family and all for Vice Chancellor also. So we want really to such dynamism. And thank you to all the officials of AIU for their backup support, basically. You know that any programs is not only just tools coming forward, but too many people is really supporting behind that. I want to especially to mention like Deputy Secretary Kuldeep Dagarji, our IT expert, Mr. Shivam Dikshit ji, and Shatpal ji, and Mr. Vijayan ji, Madam Pandrima Pani, and too many other people are behind that. So thanks to everyone, and special thanks to Icmr office in the DG office, Mr. Bhatt ji. Bhatt ji was really is in whole coordination. So as a special thanks, and really, sir, we salute your patience, and beyond that, the way you really presented, and it's really touched by that 26 people who are basically lost their life during this COVID management. So, sir, we from the AIU family, we pay our really gratitude to them and for their families. And we are really running this type of sensation program. And in future, I hope that you will join whenever it's required. So with such request, and I would like to really at last to say that stay safe till we meet again another session. And namaskar.
Sir, can we share your presentation on the AIU website?
Sure, ma'am. Sure.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, sir. Thank you. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you
sir.
all.
Thank you.
Pankaj Mittal, madam. Thank you all.
Madam, can you share this recording, madam?
Yes, it will be on the AIU website. The recording will be on the AIU website, and the slides he has just consented. So we'll put the presentation also on the AIU website.
Sure.
Thank you, madam. Thank you.
Anyway, thank you. Very good webinar indeed.
Thanks.
Thanks.
Thank you.
I think.
Madam.
Thank you, madam. Thank you.
Okay, bye.
ठीक है, Dr. Alok, thank you very much for a wonderful
Thank you.
session. Okay.
Thank you for joining us.